everybody. This is Lorena. I'm an animal trainer with Synergy Behavior Solutions, and last week I introduced you to Cypher, my rather large snake, and today I am here with my Cockatiel. His name is Picasso, and Picasso is probably like 20 to 25-ish years old. I have had him since 7th grade, so can do the math. I'm not very good at math at this time in my life. And I think he was pretty young when I got him, probably like a year old or something. But he's had a rough time of it. So when I first, got him and had him for the first few years, Picasso was super friendly. He really liked to come out, hang out on my shoulder, climb on my head, give me kisses, do all the things that that parrots do. And then I went away to college. He didn't get a whole lot of interaction. My mom did an incredible job caring for him and also was caring for a whole farm, etc. So I came back from college. He was a little bit less friendly, a little bit more attached to his cage. And then throughout college, things got... My dog, Yoshi, is offering me a chin rest because she wants some of Picasso's treats that I'm going to show you shortly. So then throughout college, I was super busy working like 2 or 3 jobs, plus in school full-time, and didn't have a lot of time for him. Even tried to like rehome him a couple times, thinking that'd be good for him. Turns out it was not, so I'm very glad he is with me forever. That said, however, he's kind of had like a series of traumatic experiences, and so Picasso doesn't really come out of his cage anymore. That doesn't mean, though, that he doesn't have an enriched and fulfilled life. At some point, I do have goals to bring him out of his cage, happily and willingly, but right now, I kind of want to talk about some common misconceptions in terms of like what enrichment is and what we think about when we want to enhance the lives of a captive animal. So another like important detail about Picasso is that when he was probably like 7 or 8 years ago, he had some sort of pain in his shoulder. I don't know what it was or where it came from. The vet said he had arthritis. I don't think that was the case because it's never come back. So whatever it was, it caused him to pluck the flight feathers out of one of his wings. I gave him medication to like resolve some of the pain, etc. But at that point it was too late. And so he used to be able to fly, and I used to allow him the option of flight. He actually flew out the window once, and that was a whole story. I did end up getting him back. But he used to fly around, and now he cannot fly. So not only can he not fly with his little gimpy wing that's like a little chicken nugget, he also is like not good at balancing. So he gets a little bit insecure when he needs to travel in his cage and he doesn't feel super secure. So the first thing that we want to think about when we're trying to enhance the just like daily life experiences of our captive animals is safety. And so in terms of his enclosure, he has a very large enclosure for a cockatiel. I actually had a friend that adopted, a dog trainer friend who adopted an African gray parrot, and this cage was way too small. This is the one he came with, and so I bought this cage from her for Picasso, so she got a bigger one for her African gray. So he has a very big cage, and I knew that was going to be a bit of a struggle in terms of figuring out a particular layout that helped him feel comfortable to move around and actually utilize the space, especially for a bird that has had a history of some stressful experiences. Novelty and change is something he does struggle with. So does my dog. So do most people, I think. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was the first few months that he was in this new cage is I really wanted to develop a layout that felt safe for him and that he could traverse various textures and different shapes and then different levels of the cage. So that actually took like probably 4 to 6 months to come up with this particular layout, which I don't really have a lot of intentions on changing. And if he were a flighted bird and a bird with more ability to move around, I would definitely be looking at like monthly rotations of his perches and providing some novelty in terms of where things are placed and where his favorite items are so that he can explore and find them. Because life is incredibly boring when you are an incredibly intelligent bird and everything is the same every day. Now for Picasso, I think that's not always the case. He does appreciate routine and he likes to know what's going to happen next because of his history. So I kind of take that into account as I slowly introduce enrichment and novelty into his life. So I was really intentional about adding different layers and easy access. So he has like 2 different ladders. He's got perches that connect to all the ladders and kind of like a lattice work so that it's easy for him to traverse about 3 or 4 layers of his cage. And now, after months of trying to figure it out, we've got to a point where he is utilizing probably 75% of the cage, which I think is great given his limited mobility sometimes. So this is absolutely his favorite spot. It's also the spot that he chooses to interact with me. So again, he's known me for decades. Hi, Diana. Hi, Joanne. Hi from Australia. Joanne's from Australia, and so are Cockatiels. Hey, that's not your chip, honey. And so Picasso obviously knows me. He likes me. He likes my face. He does not like my hands. More on that later. He likes to talk. He likes to sing. He likes to come up to my face. All of that is reinforcing to him. So, a few things to think about when we're adding enrichment for captive animals. Make sure that you have an appropriate enclosure with appropriate husbandry before you try to add cool stuff. So I said that last week with my snake. It's super important with reptiles. It's still really important with birds. So when we're looking at adding enrichment for a bird, be thinking about like what sort of lives do they live in their home habitat? So does he live in colonies? Does he live in high treetops? Or is it a ground-dwelling bird? If you have chickens, might want to think about that. They like to roost too, though. What sort of materials and plants and trees? What sort of diet? Which we'll talk more about in a minute. But even just adding novel objects to your bird's cage can be super exciting for them. So like a cardboard box or even just wooden blocks. These kinds of birds are super easy to entertain. If you have a budgie, if you have a cockatiel, he's right there. You see him now, Diana? If you have a cockatiel, just put new stuff in their cage. Use your recycling. The other day I bought some of that, like, you know the like strips of little paper confetti stuff for like Easter baskets? I bought the paper ones and I like shoved it in all of his food bowls and then put his food underneath it. So he had to kind of like pull it out and find his seeds, etc. Just silly things like that to give him something to work through. Most birds really do like bird toys. You don't have to get fancy with them. I will say for Picasso, he has one toy that he has had for over 20 years that he got like when I first got him, and he's obsessed with it, and it's right there. He's actually tapping it to communicate right now and playing with it. And he does have a few other toys that he will interact with, but it is very hit or miss, and so I have to be very creative finding new toys that he likes. I even try to emulate the original toy. I'll even try to get something that's like almost exactly the same, and it's really can't tell what he's going to be into. But that makes it kind of fun. So you don't need to go and invest in a whole bunch of bird toys. Just make some. Get stuff out of your recycling. Paper towel rolls and like toilet paper rolls, they will tear them up. They're obsessed with them. So just like attach them to the side of the cage. You can even stuff some millet in there as a treat, and you've just created easy enrichment for your bird. So having said that, another thing to think about with birds is they have extremely varied diets. So it's actually pretty easy to provide some novelty in their diet and also to provide different ways of how they access the food. So Picasso gets daily chop. So chop in like the parrot world is basically like a bunch of food all mixed together. And so my friend happens to make it, and I purchase it from her because I'm lazy, and she makes it for her African gray, so I just get some for Picasso. And he is much more of like a vegetable and grains kind of dude. He's not really big on fruits, and so he gets chop, and he really likes everything from like the rice pasta in it to the jalapenos to the squash, whatever is in there. And so pretty much every time that she resupplies me, it's something different. And so I get to kind of see what he tends to leave in his bowl. He also is obsessed with corn chips. And so so the corn chips thing is obviously not super good for him, but it is one of his most high-value reinforcers. What are we doing on time here? Great. So I just want to show a little bit of his cage and some of the things that I've got working on with him, and then you can see a little bit of what he likes to do. And again, I think that one of the really important things that we have to consider is what does our individual animal want to do? So for Picasso, it's not so much that I'm going to try and like do things that I assume birds would like. I'm going to try various textures and perches and options in order to build an environment that he enjoys moving around in. And so if you can see, I think, his cage is, I think, fairly cluttered for the average parrot. But again, it's because I wanted all of the different layers to connect. So it's really easy for him to travel around. And I also wanted to encourage him to be just a little bit more creative and to push himself and challenge himself just a little bit. So another thing that I do with him is I will separate his food and where he can access it. So right here is his chop, and because the chop is healthier than his seeds, he's obsessed with his seeds. They're absolutely his favorite thing to eat, besides the corn chips. I want to make sure that he has easy access to the chop so that he will eat it. So he does eat his chop pretty well, and it's accessible from his favorite perch. But then I very intentionally placed his seeds and his pellets lower down. So this is because just, for Picasso, just moving from this perch down to this perch takes him like quite a bit of effort. And he's got 3 or 4 different routes to do it, but I want him to be moving around to get exercise and to keep himself healthy as he gets older. So sometimes I will, I don't necessarily move the structures in his cage because of his physical needs, but I will absolutely move his food. So this food bowl, next month, will probably go to the back of the cage there on that green perch. Maybe his chop will move over here to where he's spending a lot of time on this particular ladder. So he also really likes that corner. I think that he's figured out in that corner he can watch the birds outside. I like to pretend that he enjoys that. I don't really know if he does. But you can see him playing with his toys. He's really enjoying all of the attention and me hanging out near him. However, he does not like hands. So on that note, after I have fulfilled his habitat requirements, and that's what I want you to focus on if you have a rabbit, a rat, a bird, a gerbil, a hamster, whatever it might be, fulfilling its habitat requirements and giving it novel interactions in there, I think should be really our first goal. He's actually doing his little traverse down to his seed bowl right now. Should be our first goal before we start thinking about interaction with us. So I want to get food enrichment and novel environmental habitat enrichment before I really am looking at let's get Picasso out and play. He doesn't necessarily want that right now. And what's cool is that if I boost his confidence in his physical abilities and his confidence to interact with novel objects and novel situations and even solve puzzles in his cage, then I am also going to be able to have more success if I want to start having him interact. I know that he wants to interact. This little guy hasn't had his neck scratched in 15 years, and I know he wants it so bad. So my training goal for him, if my pie in the sky training goal, is really to get him to a place where he lets me scratch his little neck. That's it. But he's terrified of hands, and he's been pretty traumatized. So my friend and coworker Grace, who is our chicken guru and chicken training expert at Synergy, we came up with a plan to start desensitizing him to hands, and that is where his corn chips come in. So he's going to have some corn chip experiences with me for a few minutes at a time, where I am just doing some classical conditioning around pairing my hand moving. You want that corn chip, Yoshi? All right, it's time. You can have it. With him taking bites of the corn chip. So I'm just teaching him that hand movement equals corn chip, which he's coming over to investigate. He actually very rarely comes down to this spot here, and I like that he's doing that right now. So all I would be doing is I'm gonna show my hand, and then he gets a little bite of a chip. See if we can you want to come up here, buddy? Come here. See if we can get him to come up here. Let's see him easier. Can you come up here? No, that's fine. He's picked this spot. That's cool. Let's see. So showing my hand, which you can't see right now because I'm not going to put it too close to cause an adverse reaction. I don't want him to get scared. So hand visible, and then feed. That's literally his entire training plan right now. And I'm just going to do random little 2 or 3 minute sessions to get lots of repetitions of my hand moving in novel but not scary ways. And this is obviously a whole other talk around classical conditioning and desensitization, but that's just an example of a way that I can have positive interactions with him. I do want to throw out one other thing. So years ago in Portland, there was a woman, her name was the Bird Lady. Her name was Mary Lou Anderson, and I'm going to talk about her because she was an incredible human. She passed away of cancer I don't know, less than a decade ago, I think. But she was the first person to teach me about enrichment with Picasso, and she used to board him when I went out of town. Incredible woman. You walk into her house, and it feels like a jungle. There was just like plants everywhere, like covering all of the spaces, and there's bird perches, and you just walk in, and there's just parrots flying. It was like paradise if you like birds. For my friend who came with me who was afraid of birds, it was a nightmare. But it was a super cool place, and she taught me a lot about ways to keep his cage healthier, to keep him healthier, and then she made her own like cockatiel mix that I would purchase. And one of the things that she said to me that I think has framed a lot of the quality of my interactions with my animals. As you can see, like I have a number of them. I actually grew up on a petting zoo, so I spent a lot of time around a lot of animals throughout my life. One of the things she said to me when I was lamenting to her about the fact that I felt like Picasso's life was not good when I was in college because I was gone all the time and he was just alone, is she said, can you spend 5 minutes of focused time with him every day? And I was like, 5 minutes is nothing. Anybody can do 5 minutes of quality time. And if we think less about quantity and more about quality, we come up with so many easy and simple ways to enhance the lives of these animals that we live with. These birds, and all birds, live for a long time. And so there are so many cockatiels and macaws and African greys and cockatoos and budgies in rescue because people can't spend those 5 minutes once or twice a day to give the animal the enrichment that they need. And a lot of the enrichment that we can do is just passive, but when it comes to me directly interacting with him, that is the highlight of his day. So even if it's only 5 minutes, what can you do today with 5 or 10 focused minutes of time with your animal to show them that you are completely focused on them, even if it's only this much time. It can be something simple like feeding tortilla chips to my aging bird, or it is doing a few minutes of training with my dog. That's really all it needs to be. I think people think too hard about it, and that's where we end up with a lot of animals in rescue. And your animal, like 90% of the time, is better off with you. So just think about quality over quantity and have fun. So Picasso says bye. He's playing with his toy. Hey, buddy. Here you go. Have a lovely day, and I will hopefully see you next week. That's all I got. It's a rough week for a lot of people, I think, so spend your quality time with your animals, and it will boost your mood. Bye.